Welcome to part two, or technically first part of going through the individual bits of the process for making beer. Gower Brewery. We'll cover off the malts to start with. Beer is mainly made up of four main raw materials: water, malt, hops and yeast. The Germans took that to the extreme in the 1600s with the Reinheitsgebot. Don't ask me how to spell it, but basically that's all they're allowed to use in their beers, and they do a bloody good job of it, to be fair. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. So that's what we employ within the Gower Brewery, just those four main raw materials. For the malts, the bulk of any brew will be made up of this stuff, which is malted barley. The maltster, it's a black art all in itself, like brewing. We'll take the original grain, which is barley, allow that to germinate for 3 or 4 days until it's got a few roots and some shoots. It'll then be dried to stop it germinating any further. And what happens in the germination process is the internal structure of that grain breaks down slightly. So when the grain is dry and put through the mill, we're able to access all this lovely white powdery stuff, which is starch. And during the brewing process, what happens is the yeast is eventually going to munch away on this starch, converting it into sugar, and that's where we're going to get the alcohol from. So anywhere between 80 to 100% of any beer will be made of that stuff, the malted barley. Outside of that, there are a series of what are called coloured malts, again produced by the maltster, taking this as the starting material, doing weird and wonderful things at different moisture contents and temperatures to produce a whole range of different coloured malts. This particular one is crystal malt, so this is a good standard coloured malt for typical beers, for bitters, and the starch is caramelized. So, Sean, if you can get a close up and see the little crunchy bits of caramelized sugar in there. So that gives the final beer a beautiful toffee, caramel, biscuity flavour and a beautiful deep red copper colour. Taking it to the extreme, where the grain is almost burnt, we have chocolate malt. So this, again, as you can tell by the colour, the grain has been dried at very, very high temperatures, and this gives us the really intense dark chocolate, licorice, smoky flavours and aromas that you'll get with the darker beers like stouts and the porters. So lovely, lovely stuff. If you've got a bread maker and you can get hold of some of this stuff, chuck it in your bread, it's beautiful. So by using different combinations, blends, amounts of the basic starting raw materials, we're able to produce a whole range of flavours and colours on the different beers from the malts. So that's one of the main starting points when we're developing a new brew and looking for particular flavours. And the guys at Crisp Malt and Warminster produce probably the best quality malts in the UK at the moment. Costs a bit, but it's well worth it. So if you want to do some brewing at home, see if you can get hold of some of their stuff, it's fantastic. Next thing we'll look at is hops, and that'll be the next bit. Next main raw material after the malt and the water, which is obviously a good 90% of the actual finished beer is water, 90-95%. The other main raw material is this lovely stuff, which are dried hops. This particular variety is Cascade, originally an American hop, but now also grown in the UK. And hops will provide the flavours that the malt stuff provides. So all the bitterness comes from the hops, also the aromas. With this particular hop Cascade, this is the predominant hop in the Gower Gold, so it gives us the lovely grapefruit, citrus, sherbet flavours and aroma. Absolutely belting stuff. We use, I'm going to guess, about 24 different hop varieties. So similar to the malt, we can use different amounts, different varieties to impart unique flavours and aromas to the various different beers. Hops themselves are not bitter, so we put these into the boil when we've got the wort into the copper, which will be a later bit of the video process. So by boiling the hops for an hour, that will actually make the chemicals in the hop bitter and allow it to dissolve into the wort. So that's how we get the bitterness out of the hop. Extra hops will then be added at the end of the boiling process, so they won't add to the bitterness, but all the lovely resins, the oils will still be dissolved into the wort and give that lovely crisp aroma and hoppy flavours. So it's good fun, basically. We're going to be coming up with some new brews hopefully in the run up to Christmas. Looking forward to experimenting with some new hop varieties with that beer. So that's Malt and the Hops. So the next video we'll be looking at the beginning of the process, where we'll be mashing in, starting with the malt and the lovely brewing liquor. We don't call it water in brewery, it's brewing liquor. So we'll see you in the next one. Many thanks.